Hello, welcome to the Daily Telegraph NRL Podcast. Adam Mobbs here in what's been a huge penultimate round of NRL. Joining me, Fatima Kdouh. Hi, Fatima.
Hi, Mumsy. How are you?
Good. Well, after the Parramatta Eels got off to a big win.
I was going to say, are you on Mad Monday with your footy team this morning?
Listen, I'll bring Paul Crawley in first before we talk about that. But, Crawls, what a weekend of footy. My Eels kicking it off with a win, doing the double over Penrith.
That's what I just said to you out the back, mate. You're only as good as your last game.
Mate, no one showed up more when it mattered less than Parramatta. And let me show you. There we go.
You're only as good as your last start, Mobsy.
Yeah. But does it make you think about what a season of missed opportunity it was for the Eels? Like, you've gone out and beaten the Panthers, but you're not playing finals football.
We've beaten them twice. I'll save this for my psychologist, Crawls, because I'm in the fetal position at the thought of it. But as we've said for weeks, this is all self-inflicted. They've got no one to blame but themselves. Injuries to Sean Lane have hurt, but suspensions for Sevo and Campbell Gillard and Ryan Madison at the start of the year. And, you go back and... Yeah, the Dylan Brown incident. You go back and pinpoint a few of those and, you need a lot to go right to win a title, injuries and suspensions and everything else, but you've got to have your destiny in your own hands and... unfortunately, they don't. But I'll tell you what, a few teams that do, and things sort of played out over the weekend like we thought they would. And now we've got Friday night, Roosters, Rabbitohs for all the bickies. Winner likely gets a finals berth, but maybe not, depending on whether the Broncos set up the minor premiership on Thursday night. I can't wait. I'm going to look at every single minute of the action this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of big games for a lot of sides, sort of from 6th to about 10th. So
they're all still in the fight. The Cowboys and the Roosters are outside the 8, but yeah.
And there's so many. It's not only what happens on Thursday, Mobs, here, but also what happens on Tuesday. So, for instance, Ivan Cleary might name close to a full-strength side, but then come Thursday, the Broncos might sew up the minor premiership, and then maybe he's tempted to rest some people, which might be an advantage for the Cowboys. So there's a lot of moving parts this weekend. So, even though some clubs are close to Mad Monday or thinking about Mad Monday, there's still a lot to play for.
So, Crawls, the Cowboys are now hoping that the Broncos do them a favour by winning Thursday night, sewing up the minor premiership. So, as Fatima says, the Panthers can rest their players. The Cowboys, we've seen they barely got over a reserve grade Penrith side when they played earlier this season. So, there's no lay-down misere there.
Yeah. But, I guess the other thing too, Mobsy, is the fact that we've got big stars injured over the weekend, like Jerome's out, Joey Manu battling a hamstring injury, you've got suspensions, you've got the Kalyn Ponga injury, it's huge.
Yeah, well, just some breaking news on Kalyn Ponga. So he's been cleared of a serious injury. Scans on Monday morning have revealed a high-grade AC joint injury, and the club hopes he'll be back for week 1 of the finals. It does mean that he will miss the fifth place night's clash against St George Illawarra on Saturday. But having locked up a final spot already with 33 competition points, victory over the Dragons will mean a home final up in the Hunter, which has been a happy hunting ground for him, pardon the pun, and sellout crowds up there. That's massive for them. So Jesse Ramian not charged by the match review committee for that hit on him. So what did you make of it?
Thought it was a legitimate shot. It was just a good shot. He had his arm up. I didn't expect it. When I saw it, you're thinking, is there something wrong here? But it wasn't. It was just a great shot. It was very unfortunate because Ponga's form at the moment is honestly, I rated it today, his influence on the current Knights is equal to what Joey was like in his prime. And I know they were in different eras and they played different positions, but how he has single-handedly been able to pick this team off the canvas. I think they were, before this run of 8 wins, they were sitting 14th on the ladder. And now you'd probably say they're in the top 3 or 4 teams on form, if they're not the form side.
Yeah.
And he is so crucial to everything, though. So that's the greatest news for Newcastle. If he misses this week and he can handle the pain, because you'd have to get needled up for that, and it becomes a pain-based...
Pain management issue, doesn't it?
Pain management issue, yeah. So, but the difference he makes to that team is unbelievable.
He's got the Jared Hayne 2009s about him for mine. But he's taking everyone with him.
Yeah.
Bradman Best is playing great footy since Origin, isn't he? You know, if you're not trying to, you look at the team sheet. Who am I defending against this week? If I'm on the wing, Dom Young. No, it's Greg Marshue. Oh crap.
Yeah.
You know.
I was thinking about that on the weekend. I wonder. I know the Knights tried hard to keep Dom Young, but I wonder, you know, if they could have tipped in an extra 50 or 100K over the course of his contract to keep him there, because he probably is the form winger in the competition. Just on Ponga not being available this week, so I had heard that Jackson Hastings was potentially going to be rested for one more week, so he was fresh for the finals. But I wonder if that changes things now with Ponga not being there. So, you know, to have Gamble, they got Gamble, Clune, who have done a pretty good job, but then to take Ponga out of that spine, I wonder if that tempts Adam O'Brien to bring Jackson Hastings back just 1 week early, because I know, you know, it's only, they've got a final spot sewn up, but do they want to potentially break that winning streak that they've got now? 7 games now?
8 games.
8 games, thanks to Christian Welsh and that sneaky little comment 2 months ago. But yeah, I think it's a big call. So, and they've got Lockie Miller sort of.
Well, Tyson Gamble's been playing good footy, hasn't he?
Unbelievable, across the park. But it's all coincided with Kalyn catching fire. Like, seriously, I honestly believe the decision from Billy Slater to make the call, the tough call, to overlook Kalyn, who was, you know, was he man of the match in Game 3 last year?
Yep.
And go with Reece Walsh for the start of this series. It's sparked a fire.
Yeah.
And we always knew how brilliant he was, because you saw it in glimpses and you saw it in Origins, but you never saw it consistently week on week like he's been at the moment. So to answer your question, I believe the most important thing for the Knights is to try and go into the finals as healthy as they possibly can be. If that means resting Hastings for another week and Kalyn, you know, doing his best to be back in 2 weeks, so be it. Like, it's a huge advantage playing at home, and that joint has rocked the last 2 weeks. But you've got to be fit for the finals. You've got to have your best players.
Yeah, and I've got no drama at all with Clune and Gamble there in the halves and Lockie Miller at fullback, if that's what they do with. And no disrespect, Dragons, as opposed to playing someone higher up the ladder, they might be a bit tempted to maybe bring him back. But I think, as Crawl said, you want your best players on the park at the right time. So we've got it fairly far down our run sheet. But the injury list from the weekend, the Jerome Luai injury, just arm in the wrong spot with that Bryce Cartwright tackle. And, oh, jeez, it was just horrid timing. You know, Jerome Hughes is a worry as well, isn't it? And... yeah, on the plus side, Ryan Papenhuyzen back.
Yeah, Ryan Papenhuyzen is back. So it'll be interesting to see how he pulled up after that game. I know he only played 19 minutes, I think it was, but Craig had spoken the week before how he did pull up quite sore after the Q Cup games. So that'll be interesting. But, you know, Jerome Hughes is a massive loss to the Storm in this really big game. He has been, you know, probably outshone Cameron Munster the last couple of weeks in particular, especially his combinations with Harry Grant, who is also in a little bit of doubt with a shoulder injury as well. But the interesting thing here is, with Hughes being out, it's actually an opportunity to bring Papenhuyzen back into the side, because Nick Meaney is an option in the halves. Whether they go down that path, throw him in for 80 minutes, it's such a big game, I'm not sure. Billy Slater was talking yesterday how Bellyache is sort of reluctant to do that, but it is an opportunity with Hughes gone to potentially see Papenhuyzen in full flight.
They'd be more inclined to go Pezzett, wouldn't they?
He's the other one, but it's such a big game too for Pezzett, who's rarely played any first grade this year.
It was great to see Ryan Papenhuyzen back, and everything he did was good, but he wasn't his supersonic Ryan Papenhuyzen of, you know, 2 years ago, and I think that it'd be a huge call to move Nick Meaney from fullback this close to the finals on what we've seen in that short window. You know, I have no doubt that Papenhuyzen can be the X factor for the Storm, but you're right about Jerome Hughes. He hasn't just outshone Munster in the last couple of weeks. He has all season. He has been their best footballer all season. He's their number one man at the moment. Harry was electric again on the weekend, and he picked up that shoulder injury. But Hughes, without Hughes, the Storm can't win the comp.
No. You know, people talk about how you just have to have Paps in there, even at the expense of Meaney. I think that's a pretty rough call. Nick Meaney has been in career best form. He's had a really good season, and he's never pretended to be anything that he's not. Like, he's not a poor man's Ryan Pappenhausen. He is Nick Meaney.
Yeah.
And it'd be pretty rough for him to sort of, have to make way for Pappenhausen, like you said, especially on such a small, sample size of 19 minutes.
He's also a Mitchell Moses doppelganger. I reckon they look very similar.
They do.
Is that just
They
me?
do.
Or
No.
Oh, you're allowed to notice other men, Crawl. It doesn't say anything about you.
I'll tell you the other thing about Pappenhausen too. He plays that utility role, super sub off the bench extremely well. If you go back to the start of his career, that's how he became known. They played him off the bench, and he used to come on and just tear games apart. So it'd be a tough one moving Meaney 1 week out from the finals. I'd be
Let me put this to you
surprised.
guys. Given the way the ladder is at the moment, you could potentially have Broncos against Storm round 1 of the finals. So will there be some ducks and drakes this week? You don't want to show your hand. You just want to, keep something up your sleeve. Because we saw last year, the Roosters beat South in that game at Allianz, the new Allianz. Then the following week, South came up and pulled their pants down. So I don't know. If I'm Kevy Walters, this is a big challenge for him. Because the next 2 weeks are going to be massive.
But they're likely to be without Adams still, aren't they? Carrigan.
Yep.
Who else has got a niggling injury there? There's another one.
Katoni Staggs will be...
Staggs
gone
is
for a week.
suspended,
Yep.
So it's going to be different anyway, isn't it? And Hughes is unlikely to play.
So Hughes isn't going to play. Kevy said on the weekend that Adam Reynolds is unlikely to play as well. He's only just started running last week. So I guess just by default they won't have both of their halfbacks. So maybe that's the little advantage they'll both have going into the first week of the finals.
Yeah, geez. But so many storylines heading into the final round,
What about the other game? Are we going to talk about that? South and the Roosters?
Well, the one thing I wanted to touch on first is more breaking news here is Rod Churchill has come out and apologised for his, what I thought was shocking criticism of Latrell Mitchell. And look, I don't know Rod Churchill. I know what family he's from and everything, but why was he coming out and having what is Latrell Mitchell's form or what he sees? What has that got to do with Rod Churchill at the moment? It'd be like Peter Sterling's kids coming out and having a crack at Parramatta over something. I don't want to go into the full thing because I just didn't like it. But the words like embarrassment and myth and things of that nature, I just thought were totally out of line. He's since come out and said, I'm embarrassed that I've tarnished my dad's reputation. I can't take things back, but I can't take back things I've said, but on reflection, I regret all my comments. My reaction was out of frustration and passion for the Rabbitohs. I went overboard and I'm deeply sorry. So I'm glad he's done that, but geez, I don't think Latrell deserved that coming his way.
He didn't deserve the words that were spoken. The words cancer and an embarrassment and all those sort of things. Didn't deserve it. But I think he spoke of the frustration a lot of South fans have been feeling. And Mobbsy, if we go back and we understand at the moment Latrell would be struggling, there's been a lot of heat on him. But if we go back and analyse why there's heat on him, we'll go back to the fact that in that Newcastle game, when they were playing for their season, Latrell was up shotgunning beers at the Luke Combs concert, and then he went out and played an absolute shocker. And it wasn't a shocker because things didn't happen for him. It was a shocker based on effort. And that's where this all exploded. And we also can't deny the fact that part of the pressure in that's being directed at Latrell and others within the group at the moment is because Sam Burgess, who is a legend of the club, was basically sacked, then asked to stay, then they wanted him out. Sam wasn't going to about face, but this has all happened because Sam didn't agree with things that were happening at that club. So what I'm trying to say is that Churchill's criticism was totally out of line. But the frustration a lot of South fans are feeling at the moment from a team that midway through the season was the premiership favourites.
Yep.
And now if they don't win this weekend, it will be the biggest shock of the season. And Latrell's not there because a moment of his frustration saw him suspended.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And the other thing that upsets me a little about this, Rodney Churchill was out of line with his comments, but he's not Clive Churchill.
No.
And the story that Souths were basically going to, if they ever get to a grand final, not accept the Churchill medal.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little bit of an overreaction also?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of tit for tat for mine in that Fatima, and I don't agree with that. And I think Buzz Rothfield's reported this. It's just coming through that I think Rod's offered to stand down from presenting the award as a fallout from this. But yeah, I just, you've got to kind of realise there's people involved in this, and you can critique performances and whatever else and effort, but I think the other stuff was over the top for mine.
Yeah, see, Crawls is right. Like, if something is open for criticism, then that's fine. But there is no doubt that some of the words used, and people who've read the story know what they are, and I'm not going to repeat them. To me, when I read them, there's no way to, regardless of which way you slice or dice it, it felt like a real personal attack. And you could have criticised Latrell as a Bunnies fan or as somebody who loves the club for, his form or his efforts on the field. But I don't understand why the attack had to be so personal. I think that changed things a little bit.
Yeah. And I get fans' frustrations that, all things being equal, Latrell Mitchell should be in the kind of form that Kalyn Ponga's in right now.
Absolutely.
We know he's capable of it. And imagine the finals race we'd have there, as a result. But, that we spoke ad nauseum last week about Souths. Are you concerned that we're going to be able to turn that around enough for this week?
It's a big one without Latrell. Again, there's Bulldogs filed the story today with Latrell out west at a rodeo. I understand that the Souths might see this as the best way for Latrell to get his mind in a healthy order. But if that was my star player, I'd kind of want him there helping Blake Taft get ready for this game.
He had a pre-planned trip away, is my understanding. So were the South players have a couple of days off? Were they still training at that point?
I thought I read that South trained.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, they would have trained, but there's a chance that it would have been pre-planned because it coincided with some days they would have had off. Because they did have a long preparation coming into this Roosters game. So, I don't have. If he's not missing training, if it wasn't a day off, then I don't have a problem with it.
You know who had a problem with the way things are going at South though? Sam Burgess had a problem with it. And for me, Sam's had his misdemeanours off the field, but one thing he always was a leader and a winner.
And a hard worker.
And a hard worker. And a guy that was prepared to do absolutely anything to get the result on the field. So if he's looking at this group and he's saying to himself, they're not passing the standards that I believe are acceptable, whether that's in line with what Jason Demetrio feels, that's one of the greatest winners our modern game has seen, saying he didn't believe. And you know what? The proof's in the pudding. Like, look at the Rabbitohs results.
So if they all had the week off, if they all had a few days off because of the bye, then I'd be okay with that. But I got to ask the question because it goes back to all what's been said last week. Is this a case of preferential treatment for one of their stars?
You've got to treat individuals differently. I get that. Like, that comes in every walk of life. What, Mobbsy, as a boss, some people you hit with a whip and some you give a cuddle. There's different personalities and different people react in different ways.
And you, my friend, are a hugger.
I was just going to say, who are you giving cuddles to, Mobbsy?
No, but what I'm trying to say is that...
I get it.
So a coach has to be very, very mindful of that. But there's another bigger issue in all this too, is that, when Sam was wanting to take up a coaching career, Bennett pleaded with South Sydney. Wayne Bennett pleaded with South Sydney, give him to me. And he totally thought to himself, I can train Sam to be a great coach. And Wayne, when you speak to him about Sam Burgess, he truly thinks he will be a great coach. But he's also a very domineering character. He's the alpha male of alpha males. And to put him, and this is no insult to Jason Demetrio, but Jason was coming in as a young coach. And to put those two together, Wayne could almost see that there was going to be an issue here friction, eventually, and it has exploded. So, you know, there's many factors in this South Sydney situation that's led us to the fact that this star-studded team is playing for their lives in the final round of the premiership.
And look, this Latrell situation isn't foreign to sport at all. I mean, Brent Reid wrote at the weekend talking about the comparisons to The Last Dance of the Chicago Bulls doco when Dennis Rodman was given 36 hours, 48 hours of leave, went to Vegas, needed to blow off some steam because that's just who he was. And Michael Jordan had to go over there 72 hours after he was, you know, they still couldn't find him, had to drag him back home. But when he got home, he was the hardest trainer and he worked his butt off. And that little bit of understanding from Phil Jackson, the coach, about what Rodman needed to get the best out of him, ultimately is what pulled this side.
Was that before their first title? Or?
No, that was their last one.
How many was that?
That was 6. That was number 6.
You know what I'm saying? Souths aren't there. They're not there. Yeah. And it was clear in their last performance, they weren't trying as hard as the opposition. On the big plays, they weren't turning up. So I don't know. Something's not working there at the moment. I guess we'll find out. The Roosters have got their own worries.
Oh, don't they just?
What do we think about Jared?
I think he plays... He plays along a very fine line, and this time it bit him on the bum, and you got to cop the punishment. Yeah,
you do, and I can understand why people.
People as in Paul Crawley.
I did read Paul Crawley's opinion on it. I can't say. Look, it's a hard one because you look at the charges, right? And it's potentially a total of 6 weeks, maybe 8 if he goes to the judiciary and loses. And then you look at the alleged headbutt and you look at the hit on Api Coruscant and you think, oh, there's something, the weeks that he's facing don't feel like they align with what, you know, happened on the footy field. But the problem is it doesn't change the fact that this is the third time that Jared's been charged with a contrary conduct charge. And that's why some people calling it a love tap, nowhere near a headbutt, is potentially going to cause him 3 weeks, you know. So
6 weeks. 6 weeks, 3 on 3.
3 on 3. Yeah. So, but as in for the headbutt, you know, it doesn't look like a headbutt to me, but there was intention in that sort of, you know.
Oh, he's using his melon for sure. He was leading with the head. It's not the old-fashioned Liverpool kiss.
Yeah, and the way I think about it is we talk about this a lot. So we see accidents on the football field and we say, you know, tackle gone wrong with the rest of it. We say, oh, there was no intention in it, you know, but it was still an accident. Maybe it collected the head, so, you know, he's got to cop the punishment. So if a player can cop the punishment for a pure accident with no intention, then if you have a contrary conduct incident on the field where there was some intention in that, then, you know, I'm happy for, you know, for that to be a 3-week charge, especially if it's happened 3 times already this year.
My point is what you said.
Thinking, Crawls?
Well, no, I don't think he does think sometimes, Jared. You know what I mean? He is just a hothead. We saw it with Spencer Leniu earlier in the season, and even on the weekend. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Lindsay Collins was there again, trying to pull him out of the drama and saying, "Settle down, Jared." You know what I mean? So there's no question he's a hothead. There's no question he crossed the line when he took out Appy, and he shouldn't have did what he did with Stefano, you know, that head nudge. It wasn't a head butt. The issue I have is that those 2 incidents in isolation, the Appy one is definitely worth a charge. And look, if it's 3 weeks after 3, I kind of get that. But what I don't get is the 3 weeks for the headbutt. And I just think that the NRL have boxed themselves into a corner on this, because if we go back earlier in the season, when Victor Radley did that on in the Dragons game on Blake Laurie,
yes,
again, it was a 3-week charge. Victor, I think he contested at the judiciary and lost and got 4 weeks. It's too heavy-handed. For what we saw there, it's just too heavy-handed. And if we've got a system that is multiplying these on previous charge, that's where I've got the problem. I think we have to change the system, because those 2 moments in isolation doesn't warrant a player sitting out 6 weeks. You know what I mean? I just think there's something wrong with the system that says That's the result.
Well, that's the thing. The system we have at the moment is relatively new. What, has it been 12 months, maybe a little over 12 months?
Yeah.
And that system was supposed to simplify things and get rid of the loading. But in a way, we still sort of have loading because you have subsequent charges that then, as you're charged with a similar offence, your punishment gradually increases. So that's why Jared Waerea-Hargreaves is facing 3 weeks for that, headbutt.
And I'll tell you where I
Tukumane.
believe fans lose faith in the system is then you have, so let's compare Jared's head nudge. I'm not going to call it a headbutt, the head nudge, right? That was just nothing. Yet over the weekend we had a tackle like Katoni Stagg's forearm to the face of Jordan Rapana. That's 1 week. Jared's 3 week for the head nudge.
Yeah.
The other tackle's 1 week. Then we had a really vulgar incident in the Penrith game, Soni Luke with the finger up the bum.
Yeah.
A concerning act notice. Like seriously,
Yeah,
a concerning... You know what? When I saw that, I thought to myself, is this the game's way of limiting the damage from a really ugly moment, the headlines that would result from that charge? Because if you go back, Hopewade, I know he did it 3 times in 2001, but he got, was it 12 weeks? We had, was it Kenny Edwards in the Super League that I wrote about this morning that got 10 weeks, I think, in the Super League?
Yeah.
And in our game, that's a concerning act noticed, yet Jared's head nudge is 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, that...
Oh, you're so offended on... Has anyone asked Jermaine Hopgood what
How
they
he
feel
feels?
about
He
his
kicked
mate?
out with his legs. Now,
But that was reactionary at the time because he didn't
Of course it's bloody reactionary.
Yeah, but when he looks
Because he
up and
didn't
goes-
expect someone to stick his finger up his bum.
When he looks up and sees it's one of his best mates,
Teammates,
Soni Luke, is going to go, oh, you've got me.
But that's regardless. That's aside from the point. The fact that they're mates, you would never ever get Jermaine Hopgood that's going to come out and say that's acceptable practice or I've got a drama with Sonny because of what happened. But the game, as the governing body, has got to say that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. Yet we've got a head nudge that they've determined is unacceptable, and that's 3 weeks.
Well, yeah. Well, if we sort of there's things that we see in the game, and I think Jared Hargreaves' headbutt is an example where, whether we like it or not, we are in modern times, and it is a modern game. So there are elements of the game that are being sanitized. So if we're trying to stop, ugly incidents like players headbutting each other, then we probably want to stop uglier incidents of players, poking each other in the bum. So yeah, I on that one I agree with Crawls.
You've got one win.
Hey? Oh, I can't believe I'm on the losing side of a finger up the bum argument. This is outrageous. Let's cut to a break. No, we'll continue. Well, I don't know how I'm going to go on this one either because I'm in between what you wrote in the crawl on the tackle today and you being a Canberra Raiders fan, but Ricky Stuart looking down the barrel of a television camera that's beaming into 300,000 homes, and you say, who cares?
Well, I look at the coach's box every single week, and almost every time, it pans on Craig Bellamy.
Yeah, but
He's...
Going off, yeah.
You know what I mean? Every coach does it. And so Ricky's taken his emotions, why did he do it, but down to the sideline.
Yeah.
And he's said that. But the camera's pointing at him. He's got nowhere to hide. And he has reacted in a split second. And for mine, that again adds to the theatre of the game. Because the words don't shock me because I see it every single week.
Yeah, but you don't see Craig Bellamy turn to the camera and go...
You know why?
F
Because
off.
Craig's up in the box.
He'd know where they are. He'd know where they're looking at him from.
Well, I just think to myself, I think that overshadows, that Ricky's outburst for mine overshadows the real story coming out of that match. And that for mine, was the double standards that Jordan Rapana gets sin-binned for an attempted trip because he didn't stop Cobbo. An attempted trip.
Slowed him up, though.
He's
It was a chicane.
okay, I'm not
He
saying,
should've
okay,
kicked
well,
out, yeah.
mate, if that's a sin bin, so is Katoni Stagg's forearm to the face of Rapana. That's a sin bin. So how do we have a system that the bunker comes in at the time of that Stags one and they reviewed it, put it on report, but nothing happens, no sin binning, yet the Rapana one is sin binned. Don't you see that as double standards?
Sin bin... Wasn't tripping back in the day a send-off? It's one of the worst things you can do on a football field, I reckon.
Okay, so that's worse. The trip was worse than the forearm to the face.
No, well, I think the tripping was bad. I'm sick of the tripping getting away with fines and things like that. I think they should be suspensions. I think it's a bad act.
That's not my beef. My beef is how can you sin bin that and not sin bin the other one?
Well, they've come down with what, a grade... Was it a grade 1 or grade 2 on Kdouh?
Grade 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll miss one.
Well,
Again, because of the system, he only misses one, but it was a grade 2. Rapana's was considered a grade 1.
I'll give you that. As far as consistency goes with contact with the head, then and forceful contact with what they put on, then he probably should be in the bin.
Yeah, if we're looking at illegal things that happen on a field, and I don't mean this from a biased Raiders point of view, but I agree with Crawls that the Kdouh incident...
Stop saying that.
The Kdouh incident was more egregious than... what Rapana did, but you can't hide away from the fact that Rapana kicked out again. So it's not the first time he's done it. He's done it multiple times this year, and this time it cost his team because the Raiders were still in the game until Rapana got sin binned. So yes, am I annoyed that Kdouh, as a Raiders fan, that Kdouh Staggs wasn't also binned? Because if you look at what Staggs did, when you see the replays, it was obvious, like he was going, it was an off the ball incident. His forearm was out. He was trying to hurt Rapana, but doesn't change the fact that this is something that Rapana has a bit of form for, and it's something that's hurt the Raiders all year, that they tend to be a really poorly disciplined footy team.
There's no question. Again, though, it's double standards. Like if Staggs gets sin binned at that time of the game, like if the NRL... You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that that's a sin binning offence, but that's not. And there's got to be some consistency there. And if the bunkers reviewed that and they've determined the fact that they've put it on report indicates they think this is going to result in a charge, well, then surely that's a sin bin. And at that time of the match, it completely changes the context of everything. And then you get Rapana that's sent off, and then you get that penalty against Hudson Young. Now, we see those escort moments in every single game.
So, was it a penalty?
Well, Mobbsy, that's okay to say that because
No,
by the letter of the law, yes, it was.
Okay.
But we see that if you watch every game like I do and you see that almost every time a kick's put up, there is in some way, shape or form, penalties could be given on everything. Yet they've decided to give this one, but they don't give the other ones. That's where Ricky's frustration comes from. And I'm telling you now, if you talk to coaches around the game, that is not just Ricky that has that concern at the moment. It is getting out of hand. The inconsistencies. But Bennett recently came up with the idea that I truly think has great merit. He wants all the coaches to get together at the end of the season and basically have a bit of a think tank on ways to sort out the sin bins, given we've had so many sin bins this year. It's the most sin bins we've had since 1995. It's got to the point where it's just out of control. Wayne's idea is if there's a sin binning, the player still gets sin binned, taken out of the game for 15 minutes, Wayne's idea is, and he's saying this is not the perfect idea, but in that time you're allowed to put on a replacement, a substitute player. Because his argument is that these sin binnings are not just robbing teams and the inconsistency of them, they're robbing the fans. They're creating so much confusion and anger, and it's avoidable. You can still have the send-off for moments, that are blatant send-offs.
But you know what you're doing in that situation? You're setting things up for vigilantism. You send out Adam Mobbs as the back rower to go and put a hit on Fatima Kdouh. I go for 15 in the bin. She's off for a HIA. She's the best player on the team. Happy days.
Well, I'm not sure that that's going to happen because in a sin bin offence is different to a send-off offence. So if there's a blatant send-off offence, you're still going to be sent off.
Oh, I'll
you know what I mean?
I'll be confused. I'll get up. I didn't know how that hit happened. I didn't mean to get it with my elbow.
Well, I think have we had 3 send-offs this year? So that's something that we can live with.
Yeah.
That's something. But we've had. Was it at last count 110? So it's probably gone up to about 113 sin bins for the season. And if you go back just 3 or 4 years, it was half that. 10 years ago, I think there was 10 or 11 in 2012. Like, it's gone up at a rate like that,
but
mate.
You know why
it's making so. Of course, I know.
It's concussion.
But that's why I'm saying it's happened because of the concussions and the concerns about head injuries. But we have to look at a way of also making sure so many games, because in that period, usually you get 2 or 3 tries, at least 2 tries usually, that are scored in that time when the player's off the field, and it's ruining the contest in too many games. It's leading to so much outrage, and it's something like there may be other coaches that have better ideas than what Wayne has, but what he's saying is everyone's got to get together and have a think about it, because what used to be 11 sin bins in a season a decade ago, as now approaching 115, probably finished the season at 120 plus. So that's 10 times what it was a decade ago. We've got to have a think, okay, is this the best way?
I just think, while I understand Crawls' frustrations, there also has to be onus on the players to do the right thing.
Sick of that this episode.
No, I mean, maybe sin bins have gone up, but how much, and coaches want to protect their players, but at the same time, it's up to the players to do the right thing and to be disciplined on the footy field. So, if you're doing the right thing and you're going to get pinged for it, then you have to live with it.
Sometimes you don't have to be doing the wrong thing to get a sin bin.
I knew you were going to say that.
No. We'll go back a couple of weeks, because the reason the Bennett came up with this idea was the Ray Stone sin bin.
Yeah.
And
Could
if
have
you
killed
go
him,
back,
Crawls.
watch it 10 times, and I'm telling you now, Ray Stone did not deserve to be sin bin.
He didn't do anything wrong.
He did not, and that we're seeing inconsistencies in this. On the weekend, we saw Rapana sin bin, not the other bloke.
Yeah.
So you spoke before about fair game, good tackle on Kalyn Ponga. What about Joey Tapanay's crash test dummy hit on a ginger Reece Walsh? You saw him pull up with that sore knee after diving over for that try, and then he was sort of limping back when the game was almost over, and whack.
I remember many years ago speaking to a first grade coach, I won't say who it was, and anyway, I said to him, I knew a guy that was looking for a start, and I said, he's a really nice fella. He said, Crawls, you don't want your front rower to be a nice fella. Joey Tapani was being a front rower in that moment.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Jared doing the same thing? You know what I loved? I loved Reece Walsh's reaction when he was interviewed on Fox afterwards, and he said, Joey's just being competitive, and he had a bit of a laugh about it, didn't take it to heart. Isn't that kid a star?
Even after the incident, when he got driven down, everyone else reacted.
Yeah.
He still had the ball. He didn't give up the pill, and he was smiling afterwards.
Yeah.
The other moment for him, did you see this? When he kicked that field goal, the arrogance, and I mean this in a good way, the arrogance, he did not even watch it go over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He just turned around.
he knew.
The only mistake he made is when the team came to congratulate him, he turned around and high-five. I would have kept walking and gone and said, what, did that go over? I would have carried it on. This is the kid who got sin-binned in Origin and got given a standing ovation. What
about the theatre that comes with him, though? Even at the start of that game, and they're in Canberra, and there's young Broncos fans there. One girl had, give me your jumper, Reece. The other girl had, give me your boots.
Yep.
And he's sitting there, and it was almost, it's not like Merv Hughes, but it's like Warney. And he's sitting there, and he's just playing to the crowd, and he's doing his stretches in front of him. He goes out and has an absolute, like every time he goes near the ball, he had them bamboozled. Poor old, who was it, Matt Frawley and Jack White. And he had that triple pump on White and pulled the defenders in, and his lightning speed, and then his kickoffs, like Frawley's standing there on the dead ball. He didn't know what to do. And then the kid, he's at the end of the game, and he's got fans surrounding him. It's like Beatlemania.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy the level of popularity that this kid's got at the age of 21,
Yeah.
What were they thinking the Broncos let him go the first time?
Clearly not that much. And then what were the Warriors thinking letting him go too? So it works both ways. But, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, just watching him, I remember I was doing some sideline for Triple M. I'm allowed to say that and plug it on the...
Yeah, Mick plugs all his ones. So.
And it was when he was still playing for the Warriors, and I was just, being at eye level there, he made a break, and just the way he just sort of... He has this sizzling energy about him, just the way he cut through the defence. I remember thinking, I just watched something like pretty great. And to see him just sort of reach his potential, and he's only a kid, right? He's only 21, and we talk about, you know, we're pretty lucky at the moment. Well, Joey Somali's gone, but, you know, people like Kalyn Ponga, players like Reece Walsh, in terms of this, like, a new age of players coming through that aren't only, like, X-factor freakishly talented, but are super marketable, you know, like, and I think that's where we've struck gold with players like Reece Walsh, because, you know, he's a superstar now, but you know, has the potential to be an absolute megastar.
Well, people were questioning his toughness crawls at the start of the year. He's done it all year, and in Origin at every moment, and gets like straight off his backside and keeps playing on.
He right now is exciting a footballer as we have seen. And like, you know, you go back to Billy Slater and these sort of guys. What makes the champions though is longevity. And it's overcoming injuries and suspensions and bad luck and misfortune. And I guess that's the unknown about Reece. He's definitely showed toughness this year. But what made Billy Slater great, what made Darren Lockyer great, was not just the toughness, but the ability to overcome adversity.
Yep.
And sustain this level of performance that he is doing at the moment, that we see Latrell struggling with. That's what separates the flash in the pans from the superstars, the all-time legends. And I guess that's what we'll watch with this kid.
Yeah. Terrific kid, and big game Thursday, Broncos Storm. So kicking off a massive weekend of what's just going to be... You're going to have to watch every game, because there's going to be rises and falls on that ladder. We'll be watching that live ladder on Fox to see where things go. But thanks for joining us, guys. That was good.
Thank
a little
you.
bit fiery. I feel like I was outnumbered here. I have to get back to the B team on Thursday. At least they'll treat me a little nicer. But yeah, thanks for that, and we'll join you again next week.
Thank you.